slide it open. It says slide right on it. It's just a nice little clip and it just snaps right together. It's very easy to take on and off, and it's not heavy, which is good because when you have a dog that has to wear these collars, you don't want them to be bulky. This episode is brought to you by our partnership with Satellite. The Satellite collar is the ultimate smart solution for caring for your dog. Developed by Satellite, an innovative pet care technology company, this groundbreaking smart collar uses AI and GPS technology to give you real-time insights into your pet's activity, well-being, and helps you track, train, contain, and care for your closest companion. Whether you're out on an epic journey or enjoying a quiet day at home, the Satellite collar is always there to keep you and your furry friends safe and sound, healthy and connected. With cutting-edge conversational AI, you can finally understand your pet's behavior, needs, and health status in real time. More than just a tracking device, the Satellite collar is your key to a deeper, more meaningful bond with your dog. Check out our website or use the code in today's episode description and use code DOGTALK to save $25 off of your purchase today. Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, the podcast where we get real about the highs, the lows, and the lessons of life with dogs. I'm your host, trainer, canine nutritionist, and lifelong advocate for pet parents and big feeling dogs. Today's episode is a must listen if you've ever worried about your dog getting loose, disappearing in a dead zone, or being one distraction away from a safety emergency. Because today we're talking next level tech. Today, I'm joined by David, Product Marketing Director at Satellite, a company that's changing the game in dog safety and smart tracking. This isn't your average GPS collar. Satellite's technology combines dual frequency GPS, AI-driven activity insights, virtual fencing, health monitoring, and for the first time ever, satellite connectivity. Whether you live in a rural area, hike often, or just want peace of mind when your reactive or adventurous pup is outside, this collar has some serious potential. And in this episode, we're breaking down exactly how it works, what makes it different, and what real-world guardians need to know. Plus, David and I get into how Satellite tracker and collar were built from the ground up for reliability in a real-world scenario, why this product stands out in crowded GPS collar technology market, and what features are already winning over both tech lovers and anxious dog parents alike. So grab your coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into the future market of smart gear and what it looks like for dogs, because this one's exciting. Before we get into the tech, David, I would love for you to share the story about your family dog who ran away during the snowstorm. I know that experience really shaped your passion for this work. How did that moment impact the way you view pet safety and influence your decision to work with Satellite?
Growing up, we always had lots of different dogs and cats. There was one in particular. I had this miniature schnauzer, and that dog was my bud. That's the dog I had a relationship with. It's not quite like any other dog I've had. And his name was Graham. And what happened was I was still in college. Every weekend I would go up to my mom's. She lived up in the mountains in the Ozarks. And I'd take my dog up there. She had a nice big fenced yard. He'd love to go out the back door and run around and everything. One year we had a record snowfall, which in Arkansas we usually only have a couple of inches. But we had record snowfall one year. So that day he needed to go to the bathroom. So I was trying to let him out. And it's cold. I didn't want to go outside. So I thought, okay, I'll just let him out in the yard for a few minutes. And then I'll call him back. He probably won't want to hang out there too long because it's so cold. And so I let him out. About 10 minutes later, I realized he hadn't come back in yet. We had a dog door, so if he wanted to come back in, he could have come back at any time. And I realized he didn't come back in yet. So I went to call him, and I called him back, and there was no sign of him. So I went out to the yard. I walked all around it. I should have just been in the yard in the first place in hindsight, but walked all around it. He's gone. And it was a heartbreaking moment. Like, I still don't know exactly how he got out, whether like he found some gap in the fence that I didn't know about. Maybe it was just there was enough snow that he was able to jump over it. I'm still not sure. But you're up in the mountains, and while we had neighbors, like there's still like 100 yards down the road is the closest neighbor, and they weren't even home. I'm looking all over for my dog, but I don't even know which way he went. He could have run down the side of the mountain off into the woods, or he could have run down the highway in one direction, into the other direction, or he could have run. I don't even know which direction to start looking for him. All I can do is just walk around a bit, and I walked a bit down the road either way and just called him, and just nothing. It was a really heartbreaking moment for me because I absolutely loved that dog. I'd had him for several years. It's a reminder to me that no matter how long you have a dog, they still have their own personality. They still have their own urges and sudden drives that they're going to just kind of chase. He'd gotten out before and he always came back. And then it's just that's the time he didn't come back. So when my friend Mark was recruiting for Satellite and he told me about this product that he's created, that's the exact moment that came to my mind of when would I have loved to have this product? Like, what's that moment as a pet parent that this would have absolutely been a lifesaver and a game changer? And for me, it was that day because I moved away from home after I graduated. I never went back home. My parents did actually find Graham 2 years later, which so there's a bit of a happy ending to that because he'd been microchipped and they picked him up in another town. But for myself, I never got the chance to see him again because I just wasn't able to get back home because by that time he passed away because he's an old dog. But he did come home, which was nice, but for something like that really shapes your view. And when I talk to all the other people that work here, everybody has their own story about a pet that ran off or a pet that got sick and they didn't even know anything was wrong. So that's something that I think for all of us here, we're very passionate about. How can we take care of our pets? How can we keep a better eye on them? How can we connect with them better?
As a vet tech, I cannot tell you how many times somebody brings in a dog that's been hit by a car, or they found it in their yard, or it was running up and down the street and they caught it and brought it in to check it for a microchip or get it help because they don't know where the dog came from and there's no owner, there's no collar, there's nothing. And it happens a lot, especially around holidays where there's big booms. Fireworks are a huge trigger for a lot of dogs. And now all of a sudden, if we're not watching them or having them somewhere safe, they're loose or they're running and they're getting injured. Honestly, it's kind of terrifying that that kind of stuff happens. And sometimes we're not watching the dog or it's a young kid that opens the door, all kinds of stuff. So I think that what you're doing here is just so important and it could be a game changer for a lot of people, especially once you get more into some of the health stuff, which is going to be really, really cool. Let's start here. For those who have never heard of Satellite, what makes your GPS collar and tracker that's coming out soon different than anything else on the market?
That's a really great question. I'd say like the biggest thing for the collar is that I think it's more of a comprehensive option than what's available. I do need to clarify something because you mentioned about satellite connection. That's true for the tracker, but for the collar, it's got the GPS signal, but you still kind of need an LTE or 4G connection in order for everything to sync up properly. So it's still something that we're working on to figure out how we can upgrade that maybe in future iterations of the collar. But for right now, like ideally, the best situation is you've got a 4G network and a GPS signal. But getting back to it, I mentioned like it's more comprehensive. So what I mean is like we've packed a lot of features into it. We've put in the location tracking. We've got fencing options. Then for the location tracking, we've got dual antennas that use dual frequencies to give better positioning. So we can try to make this as accurate as we can. On top of that, we also have activity tracking. So you can see how much your dog is active versus how much it's resting. We've got an AI consultant built in, which to my knowledge, there aren't really any other products that do all that we do that also have this AI consultant that you can ask questions. There's a few other little things that kind of set us apart, but everything beyond that is just taking things to the next level. One example is we've got a higher waterproof rating than many others of what's currently available. We're actually IP6A. IP stands for English protection, and then the 6 is the dustproof rating, which maxes out at a 6. And then the 8 is our water resistance rating, which basically once you're at a 7, you can handle immersion in shallow water. And once you're at an 8, it can be prolonged immersion in deeper water. So we've got the level 8 for water resistance. On top of that, we've got a much longer battery life than similar products. We can go up to 5 days without a charge. There's a bit of a caveat for that because sometimes the battery life can be influenced by certain firmware updates. So you might get a little more, you might get a little less, depending on what version of the app you're on and how you're using it. But generally, in all our testing, 5 days is reasonably achievable in all the versions that we've had. And then on top of that, we've also got multiple feedback options. So it's quite customizable. You can set up what you want. And then with the fencing, it's actually limited virtual fencing. You can set up as many fences as you want. You can also manage multiple dogs and have individual fences for them, or you can put them all under the same fence. And then as far as the shaping and the sizing goes, there's no real practical limitation, at least for the interface. Like you can make those fences as big as you want. The biggest thing is practical is 100,000 acres. But for the UI, there's no real limit. And then you can set as many posts as you want to be able to shape the fence however you want to. There's no limit on the number of posts you can create to shape that fence.
Which I think is so cool, because when we're talking about an invisible fence, most people are thinking about the one that they come to your house and they dig up a trench in your yard and they install wires in the ground. And there's so many risks with that. The internet company comes and they run over your electric fence, and now you don't have a fence anymore because you have to get it replaced, or it gets unplugged, or the battery dies. The battery is always going to be a problem no matter what fence you use. Maybe a section of it goes down and part of it's still working. With your collar, you don't have to worry about that because it's either all working or it's not working at all. You know that the whole thing is secure as long as everything is up and running.
That's something to keep in mind. All the different kinds of fences, including ours, they've got their benefits, and there's certain scenarios where maybe that's ideal for somebody. Obviously, one of the benefits of an actual wood fence or wire fence is that it can keep wildlife out. Obviously, our GPS fence isn't going to do that. One of the downsides is it's not as scalable. If you wanted to put that on a really large plot of land, that's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and or a lot of money. Same thing with the in-ground wire fences. There's give and take for it, just like ours. Without the physical fence there, wildlife can still wander into your yard, but if you've trained your dog well, they may not feel like they can escape that area, especially when you're working with something that primarily works off of like a painful shocks. So there's give and takes, and obviously installation's still quite expensive, whereas with ours, there's no real installation required. It's all map-based and it's all location-based. So if you know where your dog is and you know where your fence is and you've got that set up, then you can set that at any size you want. And I think that's really ideal for some people. That's not to say we're looking to necessarily replace other kinds of fencing per se, but with ours, you can have those other kind of fences too, and have ours also as an add-on or even as something to go beyond for larger areas of land. Plus, it's more customizable and it's more portable. So if you want to set up new fences in places you haven't been before, if you're traveling, if you like to go camping, in my case, I would take my dogs up to my mom's when I'd visit her on the weekends. So if I had something like that I could just set up a wide area since she's got a larger plot of land, then that would have been great for me. I think that's something that's really, really helpful for a lot of people. I hope that's what a lot of people are looking for, and that's what a lot of people are interested in. You just buy the collar, and then the fences, you can create them exactly the way that you want.
Which I think is probably the coolest thing. And you guys sent me a collar, so I have my collar here. And I know that they come in multiple colors. There's gray, red, blue, pink.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. I thought that I had all of the colors. It looks bulky, but it's not heavy, right? It's got a really nice, I'm going to mess this up. Let's slide it open. It says slide right on it. It's just a nice little like clip, and it just snaps right together. So it's very easy to take on and off, and it's not heavy, which is good, because when you have a dog that's has to wear these collars, you don't want them to be bulky. And something else too that I like about it is a lot of those invisible fence collars, like a box that's on the front, and it can get caught on things. You guys have really minimized that a lot here, and we can't worry too much about it getting caught on things or any of that kind of stuff because we don't want the dog to get hurt. But you guys have Velcro on here. If it did get stuck on something, it would likely tear away and they would be able to get free. I think the design of it is really good. And again, very lightweight. Those are all important things when we're talking about having something that works well for us. And then in addition to the comment about the fencing systems, is that the reason that we started working together was because once I get in the RV, those invisible fences really feel invaluable to me. Fitz is not the kind of dog that's going to bolt off anywhere because he wants to be right by me, but just in case, right?
Yeah.
He can be on a long line still, but if he wants to have a little bit more freedom and he wants to walk around a little bit, I want to be able to give that to him because he's used to a huge backyard where he can just kind of do whatever. So like you said, we will practice with it out in our backyard and set it up around the perimeter. Something
Mhm.
else that we talked about previously with your fencing system is the no-go zones. Can you talk about those a little bit?
With each fence that you set up, you can set up one no-go zone, and those can be pretty big. We're talking to the app team to see if we can let them set up more, but right now it's just one because it's designed for bigger areas. But you can set the no-go zone, and just like the fence, it's fully customizable in terms of shape, and you actually shape it the exact same way by putting new posts in and kind of setting up for an area. So this is really great if you've got a swimming pool or maybe a certain section of land that you don't want your dog to go to because it's potentially hazardous. That's what it's designed for. And then for smaller scale things, we also have deployable beacons, which you can put these beacons around and then they're proximity based rather than GPS based. So they're less prone to drift. And so you can deploy these beacons for certain things, like some of the scenarios we have in mind are like, if you want to help your dog learn to stay off furniture, or if you've got a new puppy and you need to help them learn not to dig through the trash and things like that you can just drop a beacon and then the feedback's customizable. So I guess I should take a step back there, but ultimately it's up to you to decide what kind of feedback you want these things to give to your dog. And then if you can keep the feedback consistent, then your dog knows what to do when it gets those certain types of feedback because you've trained it. So because those fences are location and training based, even when your dog's in a new area, it's the same feedback that when this happens, I need to go back the way that I came, or I need to go back to my home. I need to go back to my owner, whatever you've trained your dog to do, that recall, it's all reinforced by their own training. So it's something I like to say, basically it's a fence that your dog can't slip through, dig under, or jump over because it's a location-based fence that's reinforced by their training. So you take them anywhere and they know what they should do. And those no-go zones and the beacons are really, really good ways, we believe, to help your dog know, like, where is it safe to play?
The beacon technology is really cool. We had another guy come on that has an indoor collar for smaller condos and things like that, or training your dog to stay off furniture and stuff. It has the little beacon technology, and you can throw those things out, keep them in your pocket, long distance, short distance, and then they have kill ones. And if you are by a kill one, that means that the dog can go anywhere that you go. So if you want to go through the door and the dog is next to you, then it kills the thing so that they don't get the feedback from the collar, which is pretty neat, right? Because his thing was, which this is so funny, he said that he would get in trouble with his wife if she knew that he did this, but he puts the kill beacon in his pocket when she's not home so the dog can get on the couch with him. And I was like, okay, I see how it works here. Those are really handy because you can keep them out of the trash. One of his tricks was putting it on the snack board. When they're out on the patio eating, he would put the beacon on the snack board so the dog wouldn't get anywhere near the snack board. And I was like, okay, so lots of uses here for that kind of thing. I like that you can apply that to a larger area because, as you said, with only one no-go zone, being able to spread that out a little bit is probably better for some people. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And everything is on an app on the phone.
Yes, that's a satellite app.
Do you want to talk a little bit about like how the app works, where that people can find it? Is it on all the app stores, all the things?
Sure. Right now, the app's available both in the App Store and on Google Play. We also have QR codes on our website that you can scan. If you just go to our website at satellite.com, then there's an option in the top menu for the app links, and then QR codes will pop up and you can scan it and it'll take you directly to the store page that you want, either for the App Store for iOS or the Google Play Store for Android. And then once you download it, I can tell you the details, but the fact is, they're still kind of making updates pretty frequently in order to give people the best performance possible, and also to improve the user experience. Because we just launched the collar back in April, so we're still getting a lot of real world feedback. So some of the app updates are still coming pretty frequently. But we're still hoping that we can just make it as good as possible. But right now, everything's available through the app, and you can interact with it there. It can give you your dog's activity metrics, which right now is really just based on activity and rest. It's motion based, though they're working on finding ways to give more detailed insights. But at least for what the user can see right now, it's mostly focused on movement and rest. On top of that, you can also manage your fences. You've also got your interactions with your pet. You can give remote commands as well, which kind of falls under our feedback options. But there's a few things that you can do. Like you can set feedback for for the fences or for the beacons. For the beacons, I think you can also adjust the range, like how close your dog gets to it before it's triggered, as well as you can set what kind of feedback your dog gets when it approaches the beacon. For the fences too, you can also set what kind of feedback you're getting. And that's all done through the app, though there's slightly different sections. That's all in the settings. You've got your fencing, and then with the remote command, you can use the pet page to go to the map. And then from there, you actually have remote commands that you can give your dog, and you can actually set this up for what kind of command that you want to give, which would include a whistle, there's vibration, and then there's static correction, which I know some people are okay with using that and some people not so. We've made it optional just because we want to give as many tools as possible for whatever type of training we think someone might want to do. And if there's any users that don't want to use that, they could just not install the contact points, and then there's no way for it to happen in the first place. But even if you do use that, we call it static because it's really more like a TENS technology, which is like muscle stimulation. So it's not a painful experience. It's just kind of a attention grabber. And that's more for those kind of dogs that tend to have strong prey drive. There's duration settings for this. You can decide like how often you want the vibration, for example, to repeat, or how long you want the whistle to play for or repeat. And it's the same thing with the static. You can decide how long you want that to last. So we've got a few options there. And then for remote feedback, there's also, you can set this yourself, but in addition to the whistle, which is kind of the default, you also have a go home command. You press the button and your dog will get just a go home, and it'll play through the collar. And then there's also a good dog. So when your dog does behavior that you want, you can give them that command so that they know that this is the behavior that you want to reward. On top of that, there's also a warning and an alert, which you can customize, but I think those are both set to whistle by default. But you can kind of use that remotely to change that to whether you want that to be a certain type of vibration or if you want that to be a certain type of whistle or something else, where you can activate those independently for some kind of behavior for your dog. So like maybe your dog's getting over anxious about another dog walking by on the street, and you want to give some kind of command that can help calm them or something that you've trained them to, of like, this is the time we need to be quiet, then you can trigger that command remotely.
Which is phenomenal, especially for people who have large properties or even just large backyards like mine. If I'm sitting on the porch and I need him to come for whatever reason, and I can send that out so that he knows it's time to come in or whatever, they think it's great. Is that it's always going to be like come home or good dog, or you guys think that you'll adjust that so it can be customizable?
You know, originally they were looking at making that customizable. I think they still have plans to do that, but I can't really say when they're going to be able to get around to it at this point. Because now they're also working on the new products, which we've got the tracker coming out, hopefully by the end of Q3, but possibly Q4.
It's technology, right? There's always going to be room for improvement, but
absolutely,
I like to know about features because I'm a trainer, so I want to know what it could do and what it could potentially do. But you did mention that, which I'm going to show everybody. So that's where the static connectors go. As you guys can see, I don't have them on there. You guys know that I used to use an e-collar with Fitz and I don't anymore. So we probably will try to avoid putting them on there and either just use the whistle and the vibration for him. But again, it works better for some people, and some dogs, they need a little bit of a stronger interruption. That whistle isn't going to do it. The vibration isn't going to do it. They need that little bit of movement on their skin. And I have used a TENS machine before, and it can make the skin jump. It feels like a muscle jumping. If it's enough to grab their attention, then that is what matters. It's not meant to be painful. It's not meant to be used over and over and over and over again repeatedly until the dog comes. If the dog doesn't come, you guys should probably go get your dog. Just saying. The dog is not going to be able to always pay attention or come back, especially like you said, from like those prey drives and stuff. But with that being said, I'm assuming that you guys have tried this on dogs who are reactive, tend to bolt, ignore recall, and sometimes feel overwhelmed by outdoor activity. What kind of results are you seeing in the responses?
You know, I'll have to double check because we do have a veterinarian on our team that helps do this. And we've got 2 office dogs that she works with very, very regularly. Unfortunately, we're in different sections of the office. The office that she stays in is a couple of floors up, and so I don't get to talk to her as often, maybe as much as I'd like, or maybe as much as I should. But these dogs are still kind of young. They were just itty bitty things. And now they're already, I think, about 8 months old now, and they get big fast. And I can already see, at least just from when I see their behavior, they're behaving a lot better. They're recalling quite a bit better. I wish I could say more from like personal experience or personal observation, but I do think these things make a difference. I do believe in these products, but ultimately it's still training. The thing to keep in mind is, as good as the technology is, or as good as we've tried to make it, what's at the center of it all really is your relationship with your dog.
Yep. But guys, did you hear that? I want you guys to hear that again. This is all about your relationship with your dog. If you want your dog to come back, you better have a standing relationship with your dog, because if your dog doesn't trust you, your dog's not going to listen to you, especially when they're interested in something else. Training plays a huge role here. We should never completely just depend on something else to do that for us. The collar, it tracks them if they're moving around. So you can see on the app where they are. Is there an alert that will go off on the phone if they get a certain amount away from you or their home base, any of that kind of stuff?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So one thing I should clarify is we actually have two fencing types. We have a simple fence, which is just kind of a basic circle. You might be familiar with that kind of thing. I think Fi uses something similar, though. Theirs is based around a base station, if I recall correctly. Yeah. Ours is, it's the same thing with our map. You can move it around and you can size it however you want. But the shape isn't customizable. It's just a circle. So it's based on what kind of fence you set up. And then basically once your dog gets beyond that fence line, I think within about, let's see, I think once they get within about 16 feet of the boundary, then that's when they'll first start getting their first feedback, whatever you've set that to. And if they go outside of the boundary, then they'll continuously receive whatever kind of feedback you've set to. Not just constant, but it'll repeat until your dog goes back. If they go beyond that boundary, that's also when you'll get a push notification as the owner to your phone to tell you that you've got an escape alert and that you probably need to go get your dog back. It will track them during all of this. So you can look at your phone and see where your dog is. We also have the complex fence. We do have some user videos coming out very, very soon that shows like how to interact and how to set everything up. So I'll keep you posted on those. But for the complex fence, it actually starts as a square. And then when you first start out, you'll be going around on the app and you'll size it, and then you have to tap the done button, and then you can actually start shaping it by like pressing and holding on one of the posts in the corners, or it'll generate a new post in between the corner posts, and you can also create a new one by pressing and holding there and then dragging it around, so you can get the shape like really, really customizable. And like I said before, there's no limit to how many of these posts you can put, so you can customize that shape exactly the way that you want.
I promise everyone who is listening that there will be a tutorial of how to do this on YouTube at some point. I promise I will sit down and map this all out for you guys. I unfortunately have not had enough time to play with it yet, but I will create a video so that you guys can have a 5-minute, 10-minute demo, and we'll attach it to this episode so that you guys can hear about all the perks, but then also have a little, this is how it works. And you guys can watch me probably fail my way through it. I'm sure that'll be interesting. Learning
It does
curve
seem like
and
our
all.
interaction is a bit different from some other collars. So some people coming off a different type of collar think that our fence isn't shapeable, but it
Well,
is.
yeah, no, that's what I was going to say too, is that it is just a circle, and it's like a certain radius, and you can set it up so it's a certain area around your house.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't set it up properly, the dog can get pretty far before it tells you that the dog is not on your property anymore. Mm-hmm. So I had to move my station around in my house because the edge of the circle was in my neighbor's house across the street. That's the only thing, is it's not customizable at all. Mm-hmm. And it's a pretty big distance. I want to say it's somewhere between 100 and 600 feet. Don't quote me on what the exact number is. 16 is very short. It's much wider than that for a Fi collar, which, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love that it's a safety net, but if the more precise, the better, in my opinion, because if I have to get in my car and go get my dog, I want to know where my dog is. I don't want to be driving around looking for my dog.
Yeah, I understand. Something to keep in mind is these GPS fences work great for large areas. We usually recommend at least half an acre for setting up the GPS fence, just because there is a certain amount of GPS drift. Sometimes you think you're over here, but it actually shows you several feet away. So that's something to keep in mind. And especially if you're setting up a boundary like near something that you think is a hazard, maybe there's a busy road near your house, then you're going to want to set your boundary well away from that for your dog's safety. You don't want them getting up to the road and things not going off the way that they're supposed to just because the satellite positioning was slightly off. So I wouldn't like set these barriers at exactly the edge of your property per se. Maybe give it a little extra space for your dog to play with.
The cushion is important.
Yes, that is something to keep in mind. Maybe a bit of a caveat, because I do think some people maybe think this kind of technology is just like perfectly precise, and if I draw it exactly there, it's gonna be exactly there. And for the most part, it will, but it can vary depending on certain environmental factors by a certain distance, usually about, I think, I shouldn't really say any numbers without double checking with the product team.
No, that's completely fair. Like I said, don't quote me on numbers because I don't know for sure, but I think that's what I remember reading. 10 feet sounds about right to me, but don't quote me either. I did read through all of the manuals and all of the installation guides and all of that. And the setup seems very easy, which is wonderful because ease with that kind of stuff, not everybody's technology friendly. So the more user friendly it is, that's so important to people.
Yeah. Well, and do keep in mind, even something like that, that variance can be a general number, and in specific situations, it could be more, it could be less. The world is a real place, and there's always like some exception that maybe you didn't account for when you were trying to plan everything out and account for every variable.
Don't worry, I'll probably find every single one for you.
We'll appreciate it. Just report it to us, and then we'll start working on fixes.
Let's talk a little bit about the other things because obviously it doesn't just do location. You guys also can provide some health data, and then you also have the AI coach. So let's talk about those a little bit.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, so for the health data, like I said, right now we're mostly limited to, at least for what the user can see in terms of motion and rest. We're working on getting some more metrics. Right now we're working on the algorithms to where we can break down more specific behaviors, but we still need to build up the database on that a bit before it's ready for personal usage to be informing of like specific behaviors. But we want to get a breakdown between walking, running, jumping. These are all the things that we've got in plan for the caller. And hopefully by the time the tracker is ready to go, it'll be built into the tracker from day one. So those kind of insights should be helpful as well, so that you can see specific motions and you know exactly how much your dog is doing certain things, and you can know what's going on with your dog. We talked about your dog getting lost and stuff, but for me too, I had different pets and things during my life, and when I was doing research after joining Satellite, I came across this study from Purdue University, and I'm trying to jog my memory here because I don't forget I forget some of the details, but they had a certain percentage of like people who were talking about they brought their dogs in after the dogs had passed, and they were doing some research into these dogs to find out like what were the different causes of death over a 7-year period, if I remember right. And there was a certain percentage, I want to say it was around 10%, though it might have been like 8 or so, of these dogs had just passed away without their owners even knowing there was anything wrong. And when I read that, I remember I had a cat. It was the exact same thing. One of my cats would just walk out one morning and he had just died and had no idea there was anything wrong. That's where I think these health metrics is something that we can build out, and we can help know what's going on with your dog. Even the activity and rest data that we already have, I think can be helpful on that front. Because you'll be able to see, oh, my dog isn't running around as much the last couple of days as he normally does. When I'm looking at his stats for 3 weeks ago and 2 weeks ago and a week ago, it's all pretty similar. And then for the last 3 days, he's been not moving much at all. Then I think those things can help highlight if your dog isn't feeling well or if there's something wrong. With the increased data, we're hoping to be able to give more specific breakdowns. I think it'll be even more so. And once we get into like really specific health metrics and actual details that users can see about their pets, to me, this would be a game changer, especially for people with older dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys could get a heart rate monitor, I'd be thrilled. I would
Yeah,
love
that is something
that.
I think that they're looking at. I don't know if they'll be able to put it into the collar at this stage, but that is something that we really, really want to do.
And what would be really great if there was a way to share it with our vets, if it could send us an email that we could forward to our vets, or if there's some kind of way to share from the app. That kind of stuff is really invaluable, I think, to pet parents who are concerned. They're watching, because we get those Fitbits for ourselves, and we
Mhm.
watch them meticulously. We watch our heart rates, and we watch how many steps we take and calories and water and all that kind of stuff. And then as soon as we put these things on our dogs, we're definitely doing the same things, because we're more obsessed with our dogs than we are ourselves in most cases. People are going to pay attention to that data. So being able to share it with our vet is going to be something I think that would be really, really, really incredible in the future. I was going to ask you one more question about the collar. Obviously, I have a larger dog, so this is great. But do you have smaller ones, or are you working on smaller ones?
We are working on a smaller one that would attach to a normal collar. It would just be kind of a square shaped thing that we've got. It's still kind of in development. It's still early days, but it's still kind of a concept, I think, that we're hoping to be able to launch in the next couple of months that they're also working on. And that should be able to fit smaller dogs. I think the tracker that we have in development as well, the one that we've already discussed, I didn't really go into much detail on that. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
But we are also working on the tracker. I think I showed it to you when you saw us at the Global Pet Expo in Orlando. That one's attached to a harness, and then that should be sizable to smaller dogs
Okay.
because it's only about this big and it would be wearable on the back. But we're working on a smaller version as well that'll be more accessible for small dogs. But yeah, right now the current version of the collar, obviously it's for bigger dogs. Again, we've made it pretty comprehensive. We put a lot of technology in there to try to make it more accurate, to improve the battery life, and to be able to have the more customizable feedback methods. So that is larger, you're right, and that's because like we're just trying to give as many options as possible, and especially for big dogs. We do have plans for a smaller product, and that should be happening in the very near future if all goes according to plan.
The other comment I want to make about the tracker, that has solar battery power as well, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I didn't really talk about the tracker much yet. We do already have some prototypes for it. It's just they're still building out some of the software specifications. But that one will actually be satellite connected directly because it has an integrated modem from Qualcomm, the Qualcomm 910S. So that'll be an actual direct satellite uplink. And it has a solar panel built into it so it can recharge on the go. And right now, they say we should be able to achieve a 7-day battery life with that one, even without the solar charge. So that's something that's quite different. There's a caveat with the tracker because while it has a direct satellite uplink, your phone doesn't. And so for the data to sync to your phone, you'll still probably need a 4G signal at some point. But if your dog gets somewhere where there's no 4G signal, you'll still be able to track their location on your phone if you're somewhere that does have one, which is exactly the kind of product that, if I go back to my story about my dog lost in the woods during a snowstorm, that's exactly the kind of thing that would have helped me because at least I would have known what direction to start searching in. Whereas in my actual life, I had no clue where to go.
Yeah.
So the tracker is really good on that front. It's got the direct satellite uplink. And on top of that, you can actually connect to the tracker via Bluetooth. I believe it has this capability, and this shouldn't change. But they say you'll be able to connect to it via Bluetooth, and then you can send emergency messages if you get lost in the woods with your dog or have some kind of emergency scenario, that you could actually send direct satellite messages from your phone via the tracker using that satellite uplink.
Well, that's awesome. That's
But it
really
will have
awesome.
similar activity and motion tracking that the collar does, and it'll have most of the same app support, including the AI coach, which I did forget to go into detail on. Sorry, there's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
The AI coach is it's our own LLM, and it's based off of our own breed-based database that we've developed. It'll get better and better as we get more data from our users and from each pet and everything that we can use as reference points. But right now we've got our own breed-based database, so a lot of the content is referring to general breed characteristics. You can ask it questions about training advice, what kind of training works well for this kind of dog. Oh, my dog is having this kind of reaction when we do this. What are some methods that I can do that? It can give you that kind of advice. It can give you general care advice as well. If you said maybe you have a golden retriever, then you could say, okay, what kind of health problems do golden retrievers tend to have that I need to watch out for? And what are some of the symptoms that he might be experiencing? Then it can give you advice about that as well for general care recommendations. You can get general health and diet, nutrition advice as well. And it should be able to give some good insights onto that. I do want to clarify, this is no replacement for an actual vet if your dog has a real problem or if you have a real concern. do get a second opinion. But if you're just looking for like a quick reference that you just pop into the app and you ask it a question, it's basically got you covered, I think.
Yeah, that's really important. I'm really glad that you made that disclaimer, because for a dog to be diagnosed medically with a health condition or just a general diagnosis, whether they're ill, even a broken bone, the physical exam is medically necessary, guys. You can't just tell your AI, I think my dog has a broken leg. These are his symptoms. Well, your AI might say, yeah, your dog probably has a broken leg. Well, you still need to go to the vet. An AI is not going to replace a medical exam. It's not going to replace medical treatment. So definitely feel free to ask your AI any questions that you want to, but don't, as David said, replace that with your veterinary's advice, because that's where you're going to go a little bit wrong.
Yeah, where I think it's more helpful is how concerned should I maybe be about this? Then it can give you some realistic expectations based on the symptoms and things. Okay, this could be a very serious issue, or no, this is probably something very common. That's probably where it's going to be more helpful than anything. But yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely don't replace actual professional medical advice by any means with any AI.
And if you think you need to go to the vet, go to the vet.
Yeah.
Like, that's the answer. That's the answer. I like that it has some nutrition information. I don't have to run that through there. I'm a certified canine nutritionist, so I always like to roll through those things and see how much I agree or don't agree with it. So I'll definitely have feedback for you on that one.
Well, that's great. I look forward to receiving it. I'd definitely share it with the team if you send it my way.
Yeah, I absolutely will. You debuted this for the first time earlier this year at CES in 2025. What was
Yes.
the initial reaction in the tech community?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of interest. A lot of people were quite interested in like the AI component and the satellite connectivity. So I think that was something that was really making waves and getting a lot of interest, especially because like that year in particular, like it seems like AI is getting into everything. ChatGPT really changed the game, I think, even on what we consider to be AI. So for us to have something there where you can actually ask it questions and it'll answer you, I think that was something people were very, very curious about. And especially with the potential for AI to actually, I'm going to say the word learn, even though it's not exactly the way like we learn, but it can have kind of a similar effect as learning, where you have something there that can actually gather more information and develop more detailed feedback based on additional data. That's something I think that's quite different. There was quite a lot of interest in that. But, even at the Global Pet Expo where we met, I was kind of surprised because I was still meeting people there that were surprised that there's GPS fencing and stuff. Like that part, there have been products like that for a while, but that really brought home to me the fact that even though this market has existed for a few years already, that there's still people that don't know about it. There's still a lot of room for us to integrate into people's lives and make a difference to people that don't have a solution or aren't aware that there's a solution that can perfectly meet their needs.
I was unaware. When I got the email from your manager setting up time to come and meet, I was like, okay, I'm really invested in this. This is so interesting. I did not know that GPS fencing was a thing, that it had so much potential for it. So I was very excited when I met you. I have to tell you something funny. I don't know if I told you this. After I was walking around at Global, you gave me that ginormous bag with your logo on it. I think every single person at Global stopped me and they're like, where did you get that bag? I'm like, name's right here, guys. I was like, I had a meeting. I don't know if you're going to be able to go over there and just get one, but this is the booth. So it was so funny because everybody's like, that bag is huge. Where did you get it? And I was like, I had a meeting with the brands. I don't know. You could go over there and ask, but I'm not making any promises. It was so funny. It held so much stuff, though. It's a great bag.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you had a positive experience. There were quite a few people that didn't come to see us just for the bags, so maybe you were the one that sent them our way. But yeah, I'm not sure they would have stopped by our booth otherwise. So it's still good for us because I can still introduce the product and let them know what it is, and then like, oh, I didn't know there was something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I believe in. It's something that I'm very interested in making working for the podcast. And really continuing to just partner with you guys and watch this grow, because I can see where it will make my life easier. And I can see where it will make so many other people, like you said, people who live on campsites, retired couples that just travel around. They can move the fence, they can track their dog's health, and they can make sure that their dog doesn't get lost in the mountains when they're hiking. Just so many things that are so beneficial to just modern day living with some of these situations, and then just everyday living in our homes and our yards, where we're just trying to reinforce boundaries. I think what you guys are doing is so cool and it's super exciting. Do you have any like weird feedback stories or funny feedback stories from anybody that's been trying it out for you guys?
I'm sure we've got some, but just nothing comes to mind personally. I'm afraid like most of what I've got is kind of the customer experience things of like, you said the fence is shapeable, but it's not. Mostly it's just been little things like that. Um, but yeah, I think the fact is like people are trusting us with their dogs, and that's a lot of responsibility. It can be quite heavy in some ways, but we're doing our best, and we've got high aspirations, and we're really committed to trying to give the best performance that we can. As far as the fencing goes, there's still room for improvement. Like you said, with technology, there's always room for improvement. But I think we really are making a difference in people's lives. We get a lot of positive comments on our reviews of people using our products and just finding it is really, really helpful. That's really positive to me, just that we're able to give so much freedom to just dogs in general, that we can let them know where it's safe for them to run, that they can run free while staying safe. I think that's something that's really, really valuable. And it's always just very encouraging to get feedback about.
Yeah, and it's an extra layer of letting dogs be dogs, which I'm a huge advocate for. We want to let our dogs have the freedom to explore and experience life with their nose and their paws the way that they were meant to. I think what you're doing is very cool. So tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get a hold of you, and where they can find all the updates besides on my Instagram and YouTube.
We're available on social media. On Instagram, we're satellite_official, SATELLAI_official, OFFICIAL. I believe on Facebook, we're just satellite, SATELLAI. And then, of course, for the latest, go to our website, sign up to our email list. Our website is satellite.com, SATELLAI.com. And if you just go there, you can sign up for our email list, and you can find out any of the latest discounts, any of the latest special offers, or even the new product launches once those go live.
Excellent. Final question. What would you like to leave the listeners with?
Connecting with and understanding your dog is something that I think every pet parent really takes to heart. And so we're very happy that we have the opportunity to help give the tools for people to connect with and understand their pets even better. I mean, our company slogan is connecting pets to love and care. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Help your pets be connected to you and help you be connected with your pets.
That's a great slogan, and that's definitely an important message. So you guys remember, be kind, spread joy, and connect to your pets with love and care. And we'll see you guys next week on Straight Up Dog Talk. This episode is brought to you by our partnership with Satellite. The Satellite Collar is the ultimate smart solution for caring for your dog. Developed by Satellite, an innovative pet care technology company, this groundbreaking smart collar uses AI and GPS technology to give you real-time insights into your pet's activity, well-being, and helps you track, train, contain, and care for your closest companion. Whether you're out on an epic journey or enjoying a quiet day at home, the Satellite Collar is always there to keep you and your furry friends safe and sound, healthy and connected. With cutting-edge conversational AI, you can finally understand your pet's behavior, needs, and health status in real time. More than just a tracking device, the Satellite Collar is your key to a deeper, more meaningful bond with your dog. Check out our website or use the code in today's episode description and use code DOGTALK to save $25 off of your purchase today.